Welcome to Risky Thoughts with Rob and Roy.
I'm Rob.
And I'm Roy. And today I want to ask you guys all a question. Where the hell are you guys getting your external validation from? Because I barely even see people anymore. I'm like, we're going to trail on this like lonely little tangent right now. I'm not seeing too many people, so I'm not getting fucking validation, but I am getting from Instagram. So thank God for Instagram, right? So, but I'm only getting it from Instagram.
Well, I think a lot of people are getting it from social media platforms.
Yeah. So, like I don't use it that much. So, and I don't even have that many friends on my Instagram. I got like an average amount. So, I get like a 1.5 type of deal. So like it doesn't feel too good. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's not like Instagram's just not doing it for me.
Do you think you need external validation?
Absolutely. I'm a fucking people pleaser. So I
do you think that all people need external validation?
I think all people need some level of external validation. Once again, it's very zen, balanced, but it's just when you don't understand like where it's dangerous, I'll post shit on Instagram and I'll like be self-deprecating, and I'm not trying to post the best shit of my life. You know what I mean? Like I'm actually I'm trying to conduct an experiment where I can post like just the shitty parts of my life. Like today I did the little manual boomerang because today's my birthday, guys, by the way. May 25th. Thanks, man. 33 years old. Very old now. So anyways, yeah. But actually that in essence is like a seek for like external validation to make people laugh.
Yes, it is.
So yeah, like can you live without external validation? It's like, no, we live in a social kind of order, social like setting.
Yeah, we're social creatures that require it.
Like my dog Buttons, like she's a really small dog, and she's like the run to the litter. She'll like jump. Even Anakin, you know what I mean? Social validation like to the max.
Yeah, Anakin's my dog, by the
way. Yeah, exactly. So like Buttons and Anakin actually get along. They're consistently just like looking for the most attention. You know what I mean?
So it's really interesting because the part about external validation that I usually like criticize people like, oh, you're only here for fucking external validation, but I agree that you do need it.
Yeah.
So I would consider the requirement of external validation. Like I think there's like a spectrum of it. Like you can be the kind of person who doesn't care for any external validation.
Yeah.
But that makes you more of like a hermit type of person. It's not healthy either.
Yeah.
And then you can be on the other end of the spectrum where you're constantly seeking likes, and you need that
likes or approval, or just trying to do the best work so you can get that nice comment from your boss, like that good job,
pal. Or like your neighbor or your friends, or like, whoever it is in your life.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah.
So what's the right amount of external validation? That's the question that I'm trying to seek out tonight.
Well, I can tell you the wrong amount, obviously, because like I said, I am a very agreeable person. Sometimes I don't disagree when I need to, right? So that is not perhaps good. It's weird how I do it. I just kind of like sometimes it's. I'm being honest with you guys because I feel like it's the only way this whole thing will work. So I do it and I kind of lie. Like obviously, if you're agreeing when you don't, I'll just be like, yeah, that's that's nice. Like, yeah, I agree with that. But it's definitely hurts like logical thought. It can hurt logical thought, and it can also. It doesn't help people grow.
So the more important question to ask then is, forget asking how much is the right amount, because how do you even quantify it? How do you measure it? Like, is this something that we can actually turn into like a mathematical model that we can source some metrics that can help us determine levels of validation? I think the more important question is, how can you determine whether you have achieved sufficient amount of external validation? Because I think you can, it's easier. Maybe it's because we're both our personality types are ENFP and INFP, so we lead with our feelings.
Yes.
So perhaps maybe I see it this way because I lead more with my feelings. But I think you can almost feel when you have enough validation. And I think you can tell when you're seeking it too much.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you can't, actually. Maybe this is what creates these illnesses of like addictions to social media, is that you don't see when you've crossed that line.
Yeah. Can I read the definition of external validation?
Yeah. While you do that, I'm going to just give a little preface to like
yes.
why this is even our topic tonight. So this all came to discussion between Roy and I because I was actually in the car with my lovely mother, and she was asking me some questions about how I'm doing and, you know, how are you and your wife doing? Is everything okay at home? And how's your job? And all these questions kind of just felt like very robotic to be asked. And I thought, like, why are you asking me these specific questions? Like, what response do you want to hear from me? Like, you're my mother, so you obviously want what's best for me from your perspective. But, like, what is best for me? And what answer can I give you about how my job is going that's going to make you feel happy and content? Right? Because you're obviously seeking for something and you want to feel at peace to know that your son's doing all right. And I love my mother, and I love the fact that she cares about me and that she wants to know how I'm doing. But the problem is, if I give her an answer that doesn't fit her model, she doesn't accept that answer as being like optimal. Right? So for example, she can say like, how is work going? And I can say, well, you know what? I just don't feel like going into work anymore. So I quit, and now I'm going to start selling fucking rocks on the side of the road. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to earn 1/5 of what I used to make at my other job. And she'll immediately feel like terrible about this. She'll be like, oh, what's wrong with you? Is something wrong? Like, how can I make you, how can you make me what? Like, what are you trying to fix? Who are you trying to validate?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Right? Like, I'm your son.
Mm-hmm.
And as cruel as this may seem, I'm not trying to say that my mother does this with like any sort of bad intentions, but I feel like she has subscribed to the plan that everybody else kind of wants to live by. And if I don't fit the mold, she will feel like, the word's not embarrassed, but I feel like she wants me to act a certain way to validate her belief system. Right? Like, oh, if I came into the car when she asked me those questions and I said, it's going well, I love my job. You know, I went to work today, I got a raise, I was promoted to a new position, you know, and therefore now me and my wife are in a better position. We're actually looking to go and buy a new house and upgrade, and, you know, we're going to buy the white picket fence and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. I feel like if I gave her that response, she would feel validated as a mother, mm-hmm. right? Like, she has now done what she needed to do to raise the perfect child, you know, like, oh, you're doing all the right things, and that's great, because that means that as a mother I've done a great job. And I'm not saying that she's doing it, it's not even like, because it's making her sound selfish, and that's not what I mean by this. She actually sincerely cares about me, and she believes that if I achieve those goals, that, you know, I'm gonna be happy because I got all the things that she ever wanted from me in life.
Okay, I have to stop you there because there's an interesting thought here. It's like, what you're explaining there is like almost, maybe there's another way to explain it, but you can actually explain through lens of validation. It's like, there is nobody validating this. There's no actual person validating this. It's just like a societal zeitgeist.
Validation.
Like, it's just kind of like validating her idea of being a good mother, or, you know, her son is doing what he should be doing according to the societal. Put air quotes,
doing what he should be doing.
Be doing. Yes. And that, if he was, it's like validated without any person, which is really actually fascinating.
So this is, and the reason I said all of this is because I wanted to get to the actual like punchline of the story, which is, I can remember very clearly that we were turning onto the street that my mother lives on, or my parents live on. And I remember looking outside the window as she was asking me these questions, and I saw, you know, a couple people outside that were like waxing their car. I saw a couple other people who were like going for a jog, but they were wearing very like proper clothes and shit. And I'm thinking like they were all done up with makeup.
Right. They like look good exercising.
Yeah, like who the fuck are you impressing? You're going for a run.
Yeah.
And like you're standing there waxing your car, and I'm not trying to criticize cleaning the car, because like I actually find it very therapeutic as well to do that, right? It's great. But when you're doing it, and maybe this is just my bias because I've lived in this neighborhood my whole life, and there's like an automatic belief that I have that these people are waxing their car so they can go show off their wax card to the next person. Not because they're doing it for the therapy and they actually enjoy looking at their clean car. Yeah. It's just because they want to go and show the next person, look how clean my car is. I'm better than you. There's a very like arrogant mentality that surrounds us. And now that you live in the community where I've grown up, I've spent my whole life. I've spent 35 years in this.
Like these people.
Yeah, this is what I've known my whole life.
Wow. This is so different because like I came home the other day and I'm wearing like beat to shit like sweatpants with like stain on it and stuff like that, and I'm definitely getting like, because I'm observant to these things. I don't know, I could be on a spectrum of some sort, because I do see like the look people are giving me. Hopefully it's not like delusional, because I really don't care. That's not one thing. Like, yeah, like I'll walk around and like get like anti-validation. That fills my cup. Like anti-validation. But like, you know, it's just, and everybody who's walking by, they're always like looking, you know what I mean? It's the same in the area that I used to grow up in. Like but it's not that type of look. It's actually it could be similar, but there's just actually no people outside. Like there's no.
Well, I just feel like it's judgment. Like I don't know what your experience was growing up in Markham, in the part of Markham you grew up in, but like in Woodbridge, and anybody who's listening to this who's from Ontario and who knows Woodbridge, like it's not a surprise that I'm saying this. Yeah. And I don't give a shit if people are offended by the fact that I'm saying this, because they can all go fuck themselves. And I'm not trying to be, too aggressive here, but the reality is
fuck themselves.
35 years of living in this society, and like every day that went by, I noticed more and more as I got older. Because when you're a kid, you don't see this stuff, right? You're just living. Yeah. There's no like thought of like, you're not comparing yourself. You're not dick measuring. You know what I mean? You're just a kid. You're having fun. And like as I got older and older, there was a window of time where I fell right into this trap. And I was definitely a person to give a shit about like my image, like what kind of clothes I was wearing, what kind of car I was driving. I cared. I had a huge like appetite for satisfying my need for external validation, for sure. Yeah. Right. But it's because I was surrounded by this culture, and I was raised by people who also fit that culture. And again, this is not a dig at anybody who lives in this lifestyle. It was just an observation that I made, and I was like sitting in this car with my mom and thinking like, Mom, you're saying all of this because that guy there waxing his car and that lady there running with her makeup on are going to judge you for what your son has become or what your son wants to be.
So it's really interesting because they're not judging you in a way that like, oh, look at this guy, like he's just I pity him. Or it's like I think that's, once again, I have to go with the percentage game. So let's just say like 30%. That's what it is, right? There's like oh look, man, like, but I think it's mainly like a status calibration, because that little internal ticker, it wants to know that it's somewhere in the medium or higher parts, right? Because I even to give your mom some points is like, it's like you don't want your son to be at the lower rung, because it's like people at the lower rung, it sucks there. You know what I mean? So like there's like a good intention there. The best thing to do is to gain that awareness that this is just like a fictitious thing, like in your mind, like that you're just looking and you're consistently judging.
So okay, I don't mean to interrupt, but like I agree to some elements of what you've said. Yeah. Look, I think as long as you don't fall outside of the threshold, like, there's a minimum level of threshold, or there is a minimum threshold. Yeah, there's a minimum threshold to which I believe you are required to fit in with the herd. Yeah. Okay, like there's a minimum threshold.
Yeah. What is that minimum?
Well, okay, so in the context of like nice things, for example, if I was like homeless and I was wearing clothes that were extremely raggedy,
Yeah.
and I smelled like body odor,
Yeah.
and I was just like, I didn't share any of the values that the people around me did.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't cut it. Like I'm not making the threshold to the value structure that these people are living within.
Mm-hmm.
So I will be outcasted, and I would I have a kid, right? So like I would want to make sure that my son never falls below the threshold of the social setting that he's in.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna encourage him to try to be at the top of that pyramid. I don't like. This is what I'm saying. I think once you pass into the gates of the community, that's all you need, right? Like that's all of us need. We just need to be part of the community. The reason you need that is you need the cooperation of others around you.
Absolutely.
To survive.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, 100% there's a minimum level that I believe that is required. But once you get beyond that, see, and this is the thing, and this is the ironic part about the whole situation, is that the more you move up that ladder, right, the more you need to do to be validated, right? Like the higher in the status of hierarchy you are, that bar gets raised in terms of what is now considered to be minimum to maintain your social status. Right? So if you were driving around in a nice car and you always polished it and you made sure it was sparkling clean, the day that comes when you can't polish that car anymore, you feel like you're not cutting it. Right? And now you don't belong to that community that you were once part of.
Yes.
And so you're dropping somehow down into a lower, status. And like that's the part that's disturbing, because associated with that feeling of like lowering down into the next level of the tiers is there's a feeling of loss there. I don't know how to describe it, but I feel like
anxiety, depression.
Right. Yeah. And so the irony here is the more you move up to the top of the pyramid, the more prone you are to actually becoming depressed as a function of not having things.
But it's also the inverse too. Like it I think they're different traits that get kind of expressed. As you go higher, you get that neuroticness to compete and get better things, and that you become anal about like, oh, I gotta get this car. Like I need to get this car, and I've seen it. I've seen it. You've probably seen it even more,
of course,
right? You know what I mean? And then on the flip side, it's just like, the lower you are on that totem pole, it's just like you have problems with your health, like maybe eating disorder. I don't fucking know, like just anxiety, depression. It hits everyone on the chain, right? But social anxiety, like you're so scared of this system that we naturally abide by. You know what I mean? The extremes are bad. Like the extremes are definitely bad.
So the goal is to try to be somewhere in the middle.
You want to be somewhere in the middle. You know what I mean?
So how do you define that? That was the initial question.
Yeah.
Is how do you know when you've reached the point of receiving enough external validation that you have at least met the threshold?
Yeah.
That brings you into this comfort zone. Because like you're right. You don't want to become like, you don't want to be overzealous when it comes to chasing material goods.
Yep.
Or I'm only using the term material goods because that's the reference to the storyline that we're telling now.
Yeah.
You can want social validation in so many different ways, right? But like, how do you know when you are desperately wanting more? Like, because I the whole thing is like a person who is in that position. Like we have a friend that I would say is like constantly chasing sexual validation, right? And I don't believe that person is aware that that's happening to them, right? They're just like the same way that like an anorexic person doesn't recognize that they have a problem. Is that the outside looking in, you can see it, it's obvious, but the person who's going through it doesn't recognize it. So like, how do you become aware enough to understand when you have completed the task of meeting that minimum threshold so that you do fit into the community, but you're not overrun with greed and all these things that make you chase the top of the pyramid? How do you do that? Like, how do you become aware of that?
I mean, I don't think you don't. Well, why do we need to be aware of it? Why is that?
Well, because I think that if you don't keep that level in check, you risk moving to the end, to the extremes. You risk being a person who has zero care for external validation, which results in you being ejected from the community.
Yeah.
Or you become a person who requires too much external validation, and you become like one of these addicts with social media that need those likes, and they need to be fed. Their ego needs to be fed.
Yeah.
So I think it's important. That's the answer to the question. Is it's important to recognize where you are on the scale, because you don't want to tip too far to either extreme.
Yeah. The first step is like recognize the system, right? Like to first recognize that this exists. Then the next part is like recognize the importance of certain values, like certain things. Like, do you need too many things? Like, because no one sees that shit. You know what I mean? Like the consistent purchasing of things. It's like, in your house, the cars, people definitely do see. But once again, I think it's just be aware of the system. Finding out where you are in it is important. Like to be somewhere in the middle. When it kind of gets out of check, that's a hard thing, man. That's a very difficult, like.
Okay, so let's run an actual personal example,
Yes.
a very real one.
Yeah.
I find myself committing. I keep telling little white lies unnecessarily to people.
Yeah.
And a lot of those times, I'm telling those lies because I'm a storyteller and I want the validation through my storytelling.
Yes.
Right? I think you also have this trait. Not in the same way that I do. You do it in a different way. You have a different...
Yeah.
And we'll get to that in a second.
Yes.
But I do recognize that I do this.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I know it's not healthy. Yeah. I know it's not good. It's definitely bad. I need to stop it.
This is where I see it like as a problematic area for both of us. You know what I mean? Like it's like, once again, the people pleasing is very problematic. Like and the agreeableness, right? Because it does, like when I do agree with certain things, like it does, like I want to just tell people like that, like
the truth,
like fuck off. I want to be alone today.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Or just like, listen, if you're going to keep talking about some dumbass shit, like, I don't want to hear it, right? Or I'm out of here. Like, I don't want to have to rely on people filling my cup. You know what I mean?
Yes.
If I get along with you, then cool. Like 50 Cent said some, I was watching like an Instagram, shout out to Louise, I was watching his Instagram and he said like, I don't want to hang around people I have to be defensive around. That's his, and then he said that's my defense mechanism. Like if I have to be defensive around you, that's how I tell that I don't need this fucking validation. That's not enough for me. Shouldn't have to be on guard. I have found people in my life where I don't have to be on guard. You being one of them. Zhang, Yuri, 100%. I don't have to be on guard. You know what I mean? My family, I don't have to be on guard. Very interesting. Your family is someone but with certain people in my family, yeah, I have to be fucking like red alert. Like, you know what I mean? So and you asked me one time because I did something and I fucking, last Christmas, I just said, I'm not talking to this fucking person in my family anymore. I'm done. Right? And that's the reason. Because I have to fucking be defensive. And even if I do tell what I'm feeling, is just, you can't, because they're going to use it as an attack on you. Like for me to be open with my feelings, I can't afford to be attacked, because then I just crumble. So then what's my move here? It's just, okay, I can choose to walk away, right? I can choose to walk away. And I think in some shape or form, this too is something of the community, right? This community, I'm not part of it yet, right? Even though I'm hanging around here and stuff like that, and I'm not networked in here, so there's nothing. It's not an issue for me. I'm just like a kind of I'm just someone who boosts someone's status meter. Oh yeah, this guy's wearing fucking stained pants because he's staining a deck. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right, man. That's fucking amazing that you get to bump yourself up on that, right? That's great, right? But I don't need the community. I don't I just need my friends, right? And I think that's where it becomes really difficult, like
So-
choosing your friends.
But you okay? So let's go a little bit deeper in terms of our individual like issues.
Right.
Mine can be, I can give you an example of something. So I don't know, I could be telling a story about, I went to a store and I bought a chocolate bar, and when I walked out the store, some guy lipped off to somebody else in the store. And when I tell the actual story, it'll be like, this guy fucking pulled out a gun. And you're like, what's the point of that?
Yeah.
Where is there, why am I doing that? I mean, I know why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because I want to win the attention of the crowd.
Yes.
I'm seeking external validation
Yeah.
from that story, but it's meaningless.
Yeah.
And it's not even based on truth. So what is the, now that was an exaggerated, obviously that was an exaggerated example.
Yeah.
But I wanted to make it very clear as to how
Well,
that manipulation
I actually
takes
believe
place.
that.
But I've been doing it so long that I'm so good at it now that it becomes believable.
Yeah.
And it's compounded this fucking mistake I keep making because I get away with it, and that makes it even worse. So I've been trying, for the last couple of years, I would say I've been really trying to focus in on you don't need to win the crowd over every time. You
Yeah.
don't have to be the center of attention.
Yo, you were drunk the other day, and
Yeah, a couple days ago.
Yeah.
Shit face, man.
You got like a next level, and I was kind of observing it. If you don't mind, 'cause
course.
you know that about me. I'm just always analyzing everybody, even you now, when
100%.
you're drunk, because I'm like, oh, this is fascinating, and I want to say that the validation thing went it was
Off the charts.
it was off the charts
Yeah.
on the Richter scale, because you were but I also knew that okay, because one person because you quote unquote you walked into a glass door, right?
Yes, it did.
But I knew that you did that on purpose, just between me and you. But everybody in the crowd was like, "Yeah, this is the fucking funniest thing all night," right? And then the girl, she just died.
Yeah, she was laughing her ass off.
So I mean, in some weird, she literally laughed her ass off so badly that I was just damn, you caused so much joy in this individual, and I'm nice, but. Did you really walk into the fucking glass?
No, but it was an
sign?
act, right? It's an act.
It's an act. So
Yes.
I mean, fuck, dude. Is it bad that we're actors? Yeah, probably. I don't know.
Well, the problem is that you can't separate the acting from that's when it becomes problematic.
Yeah.
You can't stop the acting,
I know.
right? Because and this is not to flip the tables here, but you have a habit of hey Roy, you want to record tonight? Yeah, okay, let's record. But meanwhile, you're fuck, I don't want to fucking see you tonight, man. Just leave me the fuck alone. Right? And you have a habit of doing that.
Yeah.
And I don't know why you do it either. It's the same reason that I do the same shit that I do.
Yo, there's a really good movie. Shout out to Kareem. It's called Strange Wilderness.
I haven't seen it, no.
Jonah Hill's in it, and literally, he's just a stoner dude that's just a fat guy, and nothing against fat people, but it's more funny, okay, guys? It's just more funny, and
The word is funnier, right?
it's funnier. It's more funnier, and
Not more funnier, just funnier.
so the person he's in charge. He's outside the school bus, and his job was to load the school bus with the bags, right? And literally, the guy's asking Jonah Hill, he's like, "Yo, did you load the fucking thing?" And he's looking at it's not loaded, and he's like, Yeah, I did. It's just an act. I don't know. It's just funny, man. But I that's not a funny thing, because it can be confusing, right? Or if I'm saying yes to everything, right? Because I don't want to displease people, right? And I don't want that.
So that's unhealthy.
Yeah.
In my opinion, that's an unhealthy
That's very
behavior.
unhealthy. Yeah.
That's the equivalent of the person who wants to wax the car to go show it off to everybody.
Yeah.
When you're at that neurotic level.
Yeah.
And we both do that. We do this in different ways. It comes out in different ways, but it's the same. We're playing the same game.
It's not that I don't get it done. Sometimes some things slip, right? And I say yes to a lot of things. Sometimes at work too, and then I'm overworking myself. You saw I was overworking myself like crazy.
Yeah, but the question is why though?
Because I don't want to displease people, and I'll tell you where it comes from, because now it's actually everything's kind of wrapping up here. Like, this happens during child rearing. It happens literally in child rearing. If you are a parent who's going to be like telling your kids, do this, do that, and if you do everything your parent says, the kid will succeed. He will succeed, but it's through the mechanism of positive reinforcement and external validation. When my dad's happy, like, yeah, and then your dad becomes your boss, and then everyone around you, and then, you know, kids just consistently pleasing. And it's just, there was this one incident with these certain people. They had a niece who was like pressured into doing like piano, right? And then they came to me to ask me, they're like, Roy, can you help her? Like, can you help her? Because she just doesn't have any friends. She's weird, and she's socially anxious. And at the table, like, I'm sitting there because they're my friends, and their niece is sitting there too. And I'm like, so what do you like to do? And then literally, like, my friend is just like, started yelling at her. It's like, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? And she's like forced to give an answer.
Right.
So it's like, I know this is more of a parenting tip. It's just like, what do you want to do? Like, what do you really want to do, man? And like, no pressure. Like, I just want to know, like, what are you interested in? You know, like, what is it that you really want to do in this world? Right. So, like, that's the way I want to be asked, but I'm not going to be asked that way.
It's so strange, man, because my parents, specifically on my dad's side, they're also of that type of behavior.
Just do it, do this, do that, and like, you know, fall in order, and then you get validated from your dad, and then, but like, you know, I think in your case, it's like there's something wrong. So you tried to break this mold, right? Which is like a very hard thing to do, and it's going to cause a lot of energy and chaos, and that maybe, but I think you will end up in a better place trying to navigate this world, right? You know, because if you broke it, right?
So that's okay. And you know what? It's not to keep, just to go one step farther. Like, my dad and his brothers are actually all the same.
Yeah.
And, well, in some ways, other ways they're very different, but they have one trait that is identical across the board. Yeah. And I've inherited this behavior. Yeah. And the one thing that I've recognized is that, like, I'm always trying to validate myself to them. But now that I'm older and I look at one of my uncles, and it's just like, you're just a little kid trying to validate yourself to the world too.
Yeah. Wouldn't you? And that's like the higher mind. That's the higher mind. Like, right. Whatever you want to fucking call it. It's just like the awareness that we're just monkeys again. Right?
Well, it's just all it is you had the same fucking upbringing with your dad, which is my grandfather.
Yeah.
And you spent your life trying to validate yourself to him.
Yeah.
And now you guys have passed this down to your kids. Yeah. And we're all trying to validate ourselves to you guys.
Yeah. It's a generational kind of you could call it a trauma of some sort.
It is. It is a trauma.
And it is something that can be like, you're the one who's breaking it, and you can break it with your son.
I really hope to do that.
And I don't know what that looks like. I think now just brainstorm, because this is a brainstorming thing. Like, there's no answer. Like, you're going to have to try it, and then he's going to learn, and he's going to do it with his kid. Right. And then, so it's like, you know, like, it's like, little bro, disagree with me. Like, you know what I mean? Because the opposite was, like, you must agree with everything I'm telling you, right? Yeah. So now, like, a little bit of balance is like, you know, I don't want to do it because of this, right? And I'll listen to the kid and fucking see what he's actually saying, right? And like, I know you're gonna fuck it up. Like, if you don't listen to me, you're gonna fuck it up, and let him fuck it up. Like, let him fuck it up. That's the thing. Like, you know, let him, like, fucking fuck it up.
It's so weird, man. Because everything that you're saying right now is running through my head with an image of my son in front of me right now.
Yeah.
Trying to, like, do something.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking back to, like, some very odd moments where I'm like, I recognize I was doing exactly what my dad did with me.
Yeah, I know.
Not like that. Move.
Yeah.
Do it like this. And I have to stop this.
Yeah, no, you want him to fucking
get it wrong.
Get it wrong, because then I think you're not giving enough credit to little babies. Because they're the most resilient little things that, like I told you about the story with with the kid I was hanging with. He's going down the slide a million times, and then actually your wife told me a very similar story. He tried to go down the slide by jumping down the slide and like gashing himself. But that's the machine learning. That's how machine. That's AI. How it's doing. So it's like if you stop him in his trials, you're stopping the learning, right? And actually, the way that you overcome the social the need for social validation is by you learning that, hey, listen, man, like uncle, like fuck you just are the same as everyone else. Yeah. Because now I've seen it, I've been through it, right? So it's like number of trials, increase the number of trials at things, and don't like say like this is the way to do it, right? You know that already. But how did you find that out? Was it because your dad told you, or is it because you broke the mold and you tried to do some dumbass shit and you're like, fuck, this was fucking dumb as fuck, right? I think you learned it from yourself. Well, some things yes and some things no. Right. And that's the real question, is that like, so it's funny, the reason why I might be the one in this lineage to break that mold is because there was an actual like departing between relationship of my dad and me at some point in my younger life. Yeah. And that's the critical part. It was during the years of the learning and the education where we had a little bit of a falling apart. And it happened just at the right time that I was still young enough to go and make bad decisions. Right? And I wasn't under his thumb for those years. Yeah. And like the difference in age between me and my sister, it was just enough that she was under his thumb all the way until she was like, she was an adult. So her like identity was formed already. Right. So my sister is exactly like that with her kids. Right. She's very like, don't do it this way. You got to do it this way. Yeah. Now her husband isn't like that, which is good because now they're getting a blend of both of these types. Right. Right. But I was just enough younger than her that I was still growing and developing my identity when this falling apart happened. And I think that that's why I'm turning out to be different, right? And I'm going to be a different father now to my son. Absolutely. Because of this consequence, as a consequence of what had happened. Yeah. Amazing how like that little difference in my path, like that little redirection on the path that I was on, will have a rippling effect all the way down to now my son, my next son that's on his way, and then potentially their kids, and so on. And then it goes outward too, right? Because then their friends are going to interact with them. Anyway, this is way off on a tangent, but the point is that the validation, I agree with you wholeheartedly that it forms, this need for external validation forms at a very young age. Very young age. And I want to say, because this is almost a perfectly timed podcast, by the way, we're getting very close to our sweet spot here. Okay. But I do want to say one thing is that like, this is the problem I see with society as a whole now, because everyone has one of these in their hand. And for those of you who obviously can't see, I'm holding a cell phone in my hand. And all kids are doing this now. They're all Instagramming. They're all on social media. And they're getting bombarded with the need for social validation and external validation. And this is really, really bad. Because this is going to turn out to be just like how my dad and his brothers turned out, just like how I would have turned out, because they all are going to constantly be seeking validation from their peers. Right. And that becomes very unproductive in a work setting, that becomes unproductive in a growth setting for society. Okay. So I do want to like turn this back on me now. Yes. And defend now my agreeableness. Sure. Okay. When someone tells me something and I agree with them, yes, I do validate them. I do validate them, and maybe I shouldn't, right? But what I'm trying to say is that, like, and let me just read this definition here. I know it's a little too late here, just so that we can hit all the bases. External validation comes from others validating your feelings. This can look different across individuals, from likes on social media, compliments, and sexual validation from others. While external validation can feel incredibly good in the moment, that feeling can easily wear off. So I can go out and tell people stop looking at Instagram. I can tell them to stop going out and being very promiscuous, right? But I'm not going to do that. I am going to give you, the listener, and to others credit to figure their shit out on their own, you know? So that's why I agree. And that's my defense for why I agree. Like, and I'm pretty staunch on that. Like, before people, they're like, you know, you're too agreeable and this and that. And, you know, like, I want to be told if I'm doing something wrong. Right? Well, why do I have to tell you? Like, you have your own journey here. Like I can tell you. And once again, Kierkegaard, advice is just a dime a dozen. You'll never listen to me. No one is ever going to listen to what I'm saying, you know, and they're not going to change their behaviors because of it. I can take action if someone's going to get hurt or get killed, right? That's when I'm going to intervene, like I did with my family, right? But I'm giving you guys credit to figure your shit out. So I'm not going to, because I used to be that savior. Like, I'm trying to get rid of that guy, like, who's just trying to save everyone else but himself. I'm going to turn that back on me, right? And you guys can do what you need to do. And I trust you that you can figure it out. We're all smart individuals, you know, and it is sometimes not about being smart. It's about being emotionally intelligent. And, you know, today we had a great conversation, #Jen, who told us that emotional intelligence is something that you can grow. So these are all about the validation of your feelings, right?
So I'm going to conclude by responding to what you just said, just very briefly, because I do want to wrap it up.
Yeah.
I agree with exactly what you just said, and I think that's a great attitude, Roy. I think it's exactly what you need. But when you say yes, and I'm going to use me as the example just because when you say yes, let's hang out and record tonight, just because you feel like you want to validate me, how is that? Well, okay, it's very counterintuitive and very counter to the point you just made of me figuring it out for myself.
So once again, like, it's like I meant to just specifically address it to feelings.
Yes,
like, do you feel sad? Are you feeling down? Well, okay, that's fine. Like, you know, whatever. But okay, obviously, if you need to schedule things, like, it's a different story,
right?
Like, and if I'm wasting your time, then it's like it's a different story. Like, I'm definitely at fault there. Like,
well, I don't mean it's not a big deal. Yeah. It really doesn't bother me, and I think that you and I, and maybe we should actually
listen. We fucking record today, okay?
I know we did. We should probably implement this. We tried to come up with a strategy where you and I were going to be completely 100% honest with each other on every fucking little thing that we came across in our day.
Yeah.
If you called me and you said, "Hey man, you know, do you want to do this?" I'd be like, "No, Roy, I really don't want to see you right now," and just be completely blunt with it.
Yes.
Just so we can practice honesty, because we both suffer from this illness of like telling fibs for no reason.
Like small little white lies for stories.
For no reason. For no reason. It's just useless. But we never ended up doing that, and maybe we can try it moving forward, and we can report back to our audience in a week from now when we try to record this again.
So are we gonna record video, Rob?
Well, we've been there. You go. Here's another example of a white lie we've been telling all of our audience.
Interviews.
That we're gonna do next time. Truth is, we're lazy. We're lazy pieces of shit who cannot look. Let's not even go into it. I don't even want to talk about it.
Don't lie to
them. It breaks my heart.
Do not lie to our audience.
No, the truth is, we tried. We did try to record. We're not videographers, and we need the assistance of somebody who can give us a hand to get this all set up. And shout out to Shervon. He is going to be getting back into this with us very soon, I hope. And we will get content. It is a promise that I plan to keep. I'm not going to give a
timeline. Exactly. Yeah. We're working on it. And in our own capacity here,
and I'm confident it'll be soon. We need to get Shervon in here as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Okay, man. I liked tonight's conversation. I actually thought it was quite interesting, and I thought that I kind of knew that the validation topic would be a good one because it is all around us.
All around us.
You know, and every single person that you encounter in life is at some point or another going to seek external validation, and sometimes it's for a good reason. A lot of times it's not for good reason.
Yes.
And I actually thought it was going to be more of a rant about the people that live in this community.
Yeah.
We did a little bit of that, but it was more about ourselves, and I kind of like that.
Yeah. All right.
Cool. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. And as always, check us out on Instagram at riskythoughts.to. Give us some fucking validation because we need your external validation.
Yes. And
we'll catch you guys on the next episode.
And don't forget to hit the like button.
Have a good night, everybody.
All right.